Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm doing something a little different. Normally I invite board game designers on to interviews. Today we're looking at the industry in a different way because I'm joined by Christof, who is a board game graphic designer. Certainly going to be interesting to hear from him as he's worked on games such as Carcassonne, Dominion, Ark Nova and even Sanctuary, the upcoming Ark Nova spin-off that will be released at Spiel later this year. So welcome Christof, please introduce yourself and, well, let us know a little bit about how you became a board game graphic designer.
Hi, I'm Christof. Well, becoming a board game graphic designer was basically the combination of two of my biggest hobbies. One is drawing and the other was board games, which I enjoyed a lot till my early childhood. We played games in our family and the greater family, and this was also always a lot of fun, so I stick to it. And well, drawing, I began it about 10 years and then I combined these two hobbies to one occupation in the end. I started drawing little comics for a board game magazine and then got into the so-called industry, and my first game was in 1998, Nanook from Bambusspiele, and since then I made many games and was a freelancer till about 3.5 years ago, and now I'm a in-house graphic designer at Spiel, where Ark Nova is from.
Talking of Ark Nova there, we've got to touch on the spin-off that's coming out of Spiel because I am very much hyped for that. Sanctuary, it looks like it's going to be a really fun, slightly smaller experience. But what stage of the game's development were you brought in to work on it?
As I'm an in-house graphic designer, and we spend about 3 or 4 days together in the office and also games testing the new prototypes. I'm involved right from the start, so I know the game quite well, but at the beginning I'm not doing any graphical stuff. We just think about how to make the game better and have a better flow, and in some kind of stadium I'm beginning to work on it. Sometimes also a prototype status just to make it a bit easier to play it. Sometimes we say, okay, we're gonna do this, so let's start now to make a first version of the game and do it step by step, and then evolve it and go to the final stage then. In Sanctuary we had in the quite final stage we had some play testing, about 5, 6 or 7 different groups who didn't know the game, or some did know the game, some didn't know Ark Nova at all, some did know it, and we had them read the rules. So they tested everything. They tested the rules, they tested the graphics, and we made some, well, not really mechanical changes, but some changes from the graphics, some changes from the rules. And that was quite helpful, and we always try to get a broad range of opinions to get into the game. We as a team, we have a lot of experience. We're about 6 people here, and everybody has a gaming career or gaming interest. Everybody is a fan, so everybody can stick something into it which comes from their perspective. And so games test to do that also, which is quite helpful.
You mentioned actually play testing Sanctuary. Is this just to get a feel for a game? And how helpful is that, actually getting hands-on for a graphic designer?
Normally, I did play all the games I made the graphic for, and I think that's quite essential because there are so much little details to consider which you only can get when you know the game by heart and did play it really at least once. If it's a little card game, that might be sufficient, but if it's a more advanced game like Ark Nova or something in that range, you should at least play it twice or even 5 or 10 times, because there's so much ramifications. You should get your head into it, and there's so much to consider which you can't consider if you don't know the game.
With getting a number of plays under your belt in mind, was it actually therefore helpful having previously worked on Ark Nova? And, was that helpful for Sanctuary?
Yes, it helped doing Ark Nova before Sanctuary. On the one side, on the graphical side, our fans will recognize many of the pictograms, and we could fall back on them and reuse them again. So for us, we could say this pictogram is tested, they differ from each other, the people can recognize them and all that. Also, we had to do many things differently because Sanctuary is quite different beast, sorry for the pun, than Ark Nova. And that was good to do. On the other side, the organization side, it was good for the graphical structure, the structure of the graphical data, that I did it before in Ark Nova, and that helped me. And it was tested also that the partners could do it in the same way as we did. So we have a long year relationship with our partners, and you have to think not only we do our version and the English version, we do it also, but we also have to think, what does the partners need, what do they need as the files, and where do we have to do things differently that they do their versions also in a quite effective way.
That's really interesting. I don't think I'd thought about the industry in that sense, that a graphic designer would have to be thinking of different languages and stuff, or just different slight tweaks for different versions from different companies. That's really an interesting one. And you've worked on a number of games I mentioned at the start. You've worked on Alhambra, you've worked on Carcassonne, you've worked on Ark Nova. From those and from all of this experience that you've got, is there a tip or trick that you'd give to someone starting out being a graphic designer in the board game industry?
Well, I'm not sure if I can give very much tips or hints to upcoming designers, because there really was a change in the last 20 years what is done in what a graphic designer or an illustrator does in the board gaming world. As I started, I did all the things together. I did the box, I did the illustration, I did the layout, the pictograms, and so on. Nowadays, I'm mostly purely graphical designer. I don't do any illustration anymore. And it's more normal that one person does the illustration and another person does all the technical stuff, and also the graphic design stuff. But for one, a tip is, like I said earlier before, be in the game. Well, first thing you have to, I think it's essential that you like board games and you like what this whole world is about, and that you like gaming and so playing board games, because normally, especially if you start, there's not much money to be made, and so the feeling of having something to do with a product you really like really helps over the course of the first years, or when you're not this successful. But you have to, and also you have to know games. You have to know how they work, what is essential for picking up rules. You have to know where all the things have to be placed and so on. There are certain rules which I would say rules of components which the gamers or the players usually don't see, but they're essential to pick up all the stuff. So it's good to be really a gamer, board gamer, to get into it. But on the other hand, if it's nowadays, as I said, it's a bit more separated, the illustration from the graphic designer part. So if you're an illustrator and you're really good, and you're good in anticipating what the editor or the graphic designer in the house wants from you, and you have a good partnership. The editor and the graphic designer can surely guide you through all the things they want and they need. So it's not that essential anymore than it was before, but well, why working in board games if you don't like board games? That would be like working as a car vehicle man and not liking driving a car. So it makes no sense for me.
A great analogy there. It is important to find something that you are passionate about. And a slight segue, you've worked on a number of projects, and I know it's going to be hard, but would you be able to pick a favourite one, or is there one or an element of one that really comes to mind?
Well, choosing a favorite project is a bit hard, especially if you're in the game of the graphic design, game design so long. But one thing which comes to my mind is Carcassonne the Castle, which was the first thing I did for Hans im Glück and the first thing I did for Carcassonne. And you know Carcassonne, which are these little tiles, and you have to get the buildings and the street right. But that was not the big of a deal. But we have a very big cardboard frame with about 12 tiles, which have to fit from the illustration and that they stick together. And this was a bit hard to do. And I was really proud of it that I managed to get this all done, get it in all together and on the punch board and so on. And this was kind of the moment where I think, okay, I can do this job now. I made some step up. So this was one thing. And well, on the other thing, Ark Nova is just a blast. We like the game so much here in the office. We play it still, not only just testing new stuff for it, but just for fun. We really like it, and it's so amazing to see all the people out there loving it so much and having so much fun with it. That I think that can't be beat. Although I worked for Carcassonne, which is also a very big thing, and I really like it, for Alhambra and Terra Mystica, and I'm really proud that I could work on all these classics over the last 20 years.
Where could people go to find out a little bit more about the games that you've worked on?
Well, I never had an own website, so if you'd like to know more about my work, just go on BGG and my graphical design profile, and there you can find the stuff I did.
Board Game Geek is always a great hub of knowledge for board games. And well, the last question, let's end on a bit of a fun one. And coming from a graphic designer, the answer here should be an interesting one. What board game has the best box art?
Well, choosing most favorite box cover is really hard. There's so much amazing stuff out there. I could name at least 10 illustrators which do amazing things which I never could do. But there's two of them which sprung to my mind immediately. There's one, an older French game, which is Photosynthesis, which is done by Sabrina Miramon, and it shows a little forest scene where you can see in the middle a little tree, and all around there's bigger trees and forests on that. On that little tree, there's a ray of light from above, and it shines on the head of the tree. And this is some kind of magical. It's just all the glimmering light is all around the tree, and it shows what you can do with light in an illustration. And it's some kind of, well, mystical, even though it's a very natural scene. I really like that, and it really springs to the eye also nowadays. The other cover is just quite the opposite of it. It's from Brass Birmingham, the top place on the board game list. It's from Lena Cassette and David Forrest. They're called Mr. Cuddington. And this is just, a street scene. You see a street covered with cobblestones. You see a cartwheel. You see a bucket. You see a bottle. And it's all very dark, different shades of grays. And you see a puddle on the street. And in that puddle, you see a reflection of a hard-working woman, and I think it's also her son seeing, and this all comes together to illustrate the dawning of the industrialization in England very good, and it's very subtle, it's very overwhelming in some kind of way, and it's quite different from all the rest of the covers I've seen. Well, there are some which may be the same, but this is really sticks out.
Two stunning choices there. I think anything when it comes to light or reflections, I think they always capture the eye, and there's something special about them, and the fact that illustrations and board game box arts can capture some of that light or reflections. I think they always make something look special, don't they? And I just want to take this time to say thank you, Christof, for coming on and answering some questions today.
Thanks, Ollie, for your interesting questions. I hope I had some interesting answers, and have fun gaming with Feuerland games or all the others which are out there. Bye bye.
Of course, thank you for watching. Do go and check out a little bit more about Sanctuary, the upcoming game in the Ark Nova series that will be releasing at Spiel later this year. And until next time, well, go and check out other interviews I've done with board game professionals, often board game designers, or even some content creators here on the channel. Until next time, have a wonderful day gaming.